must hand the laurels to those whose stand as history shows built multicultural Britain today. Plenty years have passed, many things have changed. Some might feel we lead in fashion and sport, but make no mistake, some still find we strange. Plenty battles out there still to be fought. This world we share, it belongs to all of we. We must take care to respect multiplicity. Survivors of Windrush know that in love and in May 48, the Empire Windrush set sail from the Caribbean for Britain. 500 on board, coming to seek work, among them ex-RAF servicemen. The fare was only 28 pounds 10, but that was a whole heap of money.
Hello, everybody, from wherever you are in the world. A warm welcome to all our YouTube and Facebook viewers from the Windrush Caribbean Film Festival. A special thank you to our sponsors and partners who made this screening possible. We would like to take this time to acknowledge our community partners, and you can find a full list on our website. A big thank you to our lead sponsor, Caribbean Tales Worldwide Distribution and Caribbean Tales TV. Thank you for your support over the years. Please remember to subscribe to the Caribbean Tales TV channel on YouTube for more exciting screenings and films. Guys, I am your host for tonight. My name is Giselle Carter, and I am going to be leading tonight's panel discussion. Just to introduce myself a little bit, for those of you that don't know me, I am a presenter, a vocalist, an educator, and carnival arts practitioner. I'm the founding member of a community organization called Gems Mass, which is dedicated to carnival arts and education. I'm also the founder of a registered charity in England, which is the Organization for Caribbean Arts, Culture, and Heritage. And tonight, we will be watching two films. The first is Calypso Dreams, which is an intimate portrait of some of the true Calypsonians in Trinidad and Tobago in performance and in conversation. And the second one is Glamour Boyz Again, which is a remarkable acoustic performance by two of Calypso's most venerated figures, the Mighty Sparrow and Lord Superior. And tonight, I am going to be joined by some esteemed panelists, which I will introduce you to later on. But right now, I would like you to sit back, relax, and enjoy the trailers for tonight's films.
It's a living vibration rooted deep within my Caribbean belly. Lyrics to make a politician cringe or turn a woman's body into jelly. It's a sweet soca music. You could never refuse it. It make you shake like a shango. And why the hell you're shaking, you don't know. Calypso music.
It was a bacchanal, 1950 carnival. Fight for so with invaders and Tokyo. My friend run and left his hat. When they hit him a baseball hat, I have to explain. Silvando have no riot again.
A Calypsonian is a poor man newspaper. A Calypsonian is the person to tell the people's spokesman, so to speak. He is to let the people know what time is it, what's going on behind their back.
It's the Glamour Boyz again. We are going to rule Port of Spain. No more Yankee to spoil the fete. Dorothy had to take what she get. All of them who used to make style. taking 2 shillings with a smile. No more hotel to rest your head. By the sweat of thy brow, thou shalt eat bread.
Every song that they make in America is about love, but we sing from politics to sport to science to whatever, education. It is recorded in Calypso.
I am like a river overflowing its bank. You try to stop me, I'm going to find room to pass.
She hear the beat of a steel band and the simple song of a horn. Where she go, she leave the pot and the fire, and she go. Calypso to me is dear to my heart. After God, my wife, Calypso.
I am not stopping singing Calypso until I die.
So welcome back, everybody. Now we get to the exciting part of tonight's program, where I am joined by 2 esteemed panelists and colleagues, gentlemen that I've had the absolute pleasure of performing with on stage. My first panelist tonight is none other than Alexander the Great, great Calypsonian in the UK. Born in Port of Spain, Trinidad, Alex grew up as a professional. He came from a professional family. He's a professional musician and composer for more than 40 years. And he returned to his Calypso roots in the late 1980s, creating his own fusion of Calypso, soul, and blues called Soca Blues. Since February 2000, he has been a Calypsonian in residence for the BBC. And he was the UK Calypso monarch in 2010 and 2011. Good night and welcome, Alex.
Good night and welcome, everybody. Thank you.
And my second guest panelist tonight needs no introduction. I always say that he always tells me that we are relatives from Barbados, and I always chuckle and smile because I love Barbados to the core. And this Calypsonian needs no introduction. His name is Jeff the Admiral Hinds. He is a founding member of the Association of British Calypsonians, which hosts the London Calypso tent where we both performed. And in 2008 and in 2010, he has been in the top 3 with his compositions Play With Tune, and in the Groovy Soca competition, They Love My People. In the National Calypso competition as well, he won it with the Windrush generation. And he was proclaimed the king, the UK Calypso monarch, as well as king of the Calypso tent in 2018. Jeff, good evening. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Good evening to all your viewers and listeners throughout this wonderful world. It's good evening, a good morning, and a good night.
It is so lovely to have you gentlemen here this evening, tonight, for us to be discussing something dear to all of our hearts, this great art from Calypso, or Calypso, as it's affectionately called. Let's start with you, Alex. Can you just give us a little summary or synopsis of your take on Calypso Dreams and Saga Boys again?
Well, it's a wonderful record of the atmospheric, the way Calypso has been a part of the narrative of the people since its inception. It is the oral newspaper, if you like. Calypso is what the people in the street listen to get their information. In fact, it's so important that every year at carnival time, the politicians quake as they worry about what the Calypsonians are going to sing about them. We call it singing on you. And you can see the newspapers, very often round about February, March, the newspapers, the front pages, the front 3 or 4 pages will deal with something that a Calypsonian has said about a politician. And I think that is a fantastic way to view the importance of Calypso as not only social commentary, but also as a newscaster in music of what is going on in the world around us. And long may it remain so.
Yes, absolutely. And I totally agree. And that brings us really nicely to the point that you were making. of the Calypsonian as the griot, you know, the storyteller, as they're affectionately called. And in recent times as well, or even as way back as from I remember as a child growing up, you know, Calypso and the Calypsonian always delivered a message. But what I found really interesting was the art form that some Calypsonians used, which is double entendre, to tell that story and to tell that message in a humorous way. And that was something that I found very amazing. And, you know, even growing up, I didn't understand most of it. What it is these artists were saying, which I found was so clever that, you know, they could use this skill to deliver a message in different ways, you know, to different audiences. Over to my next guest, Jeff. Same question for you. What is your take on Calypso Dreams?
Well, when I saw the film first, I watched it about maybe 6 times since then. I was fascinated by the artists who I'd heard about. I'd heard their songs over the years, and I heard much stories about them. But to actually hear it coming from them on film was fascinating. What is also significant and very, very sad is that of all those artists you found that you saw in this film, many of them have passed on since the film was actually made, published. But when you actually hear a man like Ulrich Farrell, the Lord Pretender, speak, and the wisdom he expressed and the way in which he showed his real class as a Calypsonian over such a long period of time, it is really fascinating, and it never fails to amaze me, the talent of these people and how these people reflect the streets, they reflect the environment, and they reflect the struggle. And Calypso Dreams, in my view, captures that. And it captures the seriousness of it, it captures the other side of it, and it captures the side that some people don't want to accept. I think it's a fantastic piece of work. And it really is something that all people involved in music, not just Calypso and Caribbean music, but I think it's a lesson to a lot of people who are actually interested in entertainment in general.
Yes, I totally agree. You know, it is quite fascinating. And one of the things that I am grateful for is that this film, this docu-film was actually made. Because one of the things that tends to happen, especially with our culture, is, you know, we tend not to document it. So how do we then relay that story? How do we then translate that history to future generations? You know, for myself as an educator, I tend to rely a lot on these films, these documentaries, to show to my students so that they can have a greater appreciation of the history of Calypso, of Carnival, of whatever it is that, you know, they're being taught. So, you know, I think it's great that this was done. And also kudos to, you know, the Windrush Caribbean Film Festival for actually doing this screening and helping to raise awareness and spread education amongst people. Which brings me quite nicely to my next question to both of you guys. Now, obviously, y'all are Calypsonians here in the UK. Could you just give us a little bit of insight into your own careers as Calypsonians, as griots in the UK, and some of the songs and the issues that you've touched upon, you know, in over the years?
Yes. Shall I go first? How you?
Yes, Alex, by all means.
Okay, well, one of the things that I have to mention is the fearlessness of the Calypsonian. The Calypsonian is fearless because he or she makes their statement whether it is accepted by the powers that be or not. The character of the Calypsonian is this, or the griot, if you like, is the same character as that of the court jester, if you like, in medieval Europe. In that the court jester was protected in a way because he could make fun of the enemies of the king or the lord whom he served and get away with making fun in a way that other people couldn't. He was expected to ridicule the enemies of his boss, if you like. However, if you imagine upstairs in the court, they would deliver their invective, delight of the ruler or the person in charge. But after the gig, if you like, downstairs in the kitchen, having the after the gig little flagon of whatever it was, beer or something, they would sing the same sort of lyrics about the people in power. And that was where the piquant came in, the making fun of the sacred cows, if you like, of society. Very important aspect of it. And I remember when I was very young, we used to, I came here as a toddler to Britain in the early 50s. But I remember that lots of relatives brought albums with them because many Caribbeans in those days, once they'd established a place where a place to live, then other relatives would come over to study, to do nursing, to go to college, all these things. And they would bring, in those days, vinyl albums with them. In fact, it was a prerequisite of coming to stay with us. I remember my mother saying, make sure you bring some records, bring some pans, bring some kaiso. And they would bring them. And the first record that, or the first song that really struck me heavily was the Mighty Sparrows' Carnival Boycott. And the reason was the chorus says, the subject is about the underpayment of Calypsonians, of artists, of mask makers and so on for their efforts. Because in those days, the Carnival Queen, who was invariably either very light-skinned or a white lady, would win $5,000, a great deal of money back in the 1950s, and a new car. But the Calypso monarch would get $25. And after Sparrow sang that song, Carnival Boycott, they raised the price, I think the following year to $100, and very quickly around $500. So Sparrow's protest, well, let me see if I can remember how it went. I go play me mass as usual because I love Carnival. Sparrow playing mass as usual because I love Carnival. But no competition for me in San Fernando or the city. They could preach Peter or Paul. I wouldn't even go Savannah to play football. I intend to keep all my costumes on the shelf. Let they keep the prize and the fighting between their own self. And let the queen run the show without steel band and calypso. Man, if you want to go, you could go up there, but me ain't going no way. The point is, I thought the queen he was referring to was Queen Elizabeth. So I thought, wow, this guy has got, how could he say that? Not realizing he was referring to the Carnival Queen. I found that out much later in life. But it really excited me because popular music didn't do that kind of thing, right? And as a consequence, later on, I mean, as being a teenager, I began to listen to people like Bob Dylan. I listened to protest songs and realized that this was the kind of music that really grabbed me because of its subject matter. And although I became a general musician playing all different kinds of music, including reggae, soul, all these things, I decided that in the late 80s to return to my musical roots and just go for Kaiso all the way. And it was that first incredibly, well, it wasn't rude, it was a daring song by the Mighty Sparrows that put me in that frame of mind. How about you, Jeff?
Well, you know, I was naturally inclined to be a Calypso from time I was small. Before I knew about Calypso, there was something about, my mom told me that the way I used to behave, I used to sort of be a person, sit down there and listen, don't say much. But anyway, when I was about 5 years old, 6 years old, we had this, we got this message that we were going to the airport. Where is the airport? We don't know. None of us been anywhere near an airplane or near airport. Anyway, we go to the airport on Saturday morning. It was dark, I remember. And then we stand up in a big crowd. And then this young girl comes up. And my dad says to us, by the way, this is your sister. This is your sister, right? So we meet with sister. We knew we had a sister, but we didn't know we was going to meet her. Nobody tells us a thing. Anyway, so when we get back home now, and sister unpacking everything, she bring out a pile of records. And in between that pile of records, there was one record that was red. The plastic was red. So that naturally attracted me and my youngest brother was only big at the time, but my other brother above me. We attracted to this red record. Because we never seen a red record before. So we put this record on. This record was a tune by a group called the Merry Men. from Barbados. A tune called The Guns. And from the time I heard The Guns, I never ever, and I will say so now, till my last day, I will never take any art form or any style of music in front of Calypso. Because there was something about the rhythm, it touched a part of me that was inside of me dormant. And we played this song so often that the record player began to get tired playing it. It started to slow down. Too many guns in this town, bashi, 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 too many guns. And it wasn't really an authentic Calypso when I think about it. But it made me so interested in Calypso that I started to ask questions of your people. And they told me about somebody called Sparrow. And my dad had heard that Sparrow had died in 1960 when Melody made the song. So my dad thought that Sparrow had died. Because he's in England now. So he don't know what happened. It's just become going on. So I started to go around every second-hand shop I could find. And in 1971, after coming from pictures, I went in a shop, me and two friends, and we saw an album with a man sitting on a stool with a guitar in his hand. And the man had the same look on his face as my dad had. He reminded me of my father looking at me. And that was Lord Kitchener's 1967 album. And I buy the album, cost me 55 pence. That was my first album. And from there on, I had every single album Kitchener ever made, every single album Sparrow ever made. And Calypso became part of me. And I even at primary school, I was ostracized by children who don't know what is Calypso. One of my school friends one time told me, Calypso is old people talking fast. I said, yes. I invite him to my home to hear Calypso. And I live to see the day when nobody can dance more soca than him now. And he remember that in the days of primary school, I brought Calypso to the primary school and I brought Pan to the primary school. So that is how I get into Calypso, because that red record that my sister brought from Barbados in about 1964-5.
Wow. What an amazing story. So you baptized your friend with Calypso, eh?
I baptized in Reading here, right? People will tell you, in the 70s, when they had a very vibrant sound system culture, I never leave the Calypso art form. And some guys used to be very, very annoyed with me. They didn't want me to have a comment on sound system. They said, no, you're the Calypso. You don't comment. They say, you are Calypso. And I went to Notting Hill, Canada myself for the first time in 1976. The year when they had the riot, before you all would come, before you were in this country, Giselle.
Yes.
And that year I went to Notting Hill Carnival. My mom took me. And I stood on Notting Hill Carnival, the main road. I think it was the main road. And I stood there enjoying what I had been hearing in song, bands coming on the road. And I remember I hear a man start to shout, Sparrow, Sparrow, Sparrow. And all I could do was look in this car. And who was sitting there?
The man himself.
The mighty Sparrow was sitting in an old Morris Oxford Cambridge car. He was sitting there eloquently. All I could do was run to the car. When I get to the car, all I could do is look at Sparrow. I couldn't say a word. My day had been made. My day had been made. I didn't have to know nothing more about what life. I had seen the mighty Sparrow.
The mighty Sparrow. Well, I'll tell you a little moment of mine. I had the pleasure of singing background vocals for the mighty Sparrow. Yes. And also had the esteemed pleasure of being his chauffeur whilst he did a show here in London, taking him to and from his hotel.
I remember.
Having the mighty Sparrow sit in the front seat of my car was like a dream come true, because the mighty Sparrow and my father, the late Steve Roseman, God bless his soul, were school friends. They went to school together.
Wonderful.
So I was so excited because I phoned my dad and I said, Daddy, 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 guess who's sitting in my car? Guess who I was driving? I want to tell him it was Sparrow. He said, oh, that old crook. We went to school together.
Yeah.
And I was over the moon. I couldn't believe it. I mean, just the mere fact of being able to sing background vocals for such an icon was amazing. Watching him on stage, you know, in full form. And this was, you know, this was a few years ago. And of course, we must give credit to, you know, one of the stalwart promoters in the UK for Calypso, Mr. Sonny Blacks, you know, that did that show with Sparrow and David Rudd. And you know, I was doing background vocals for them, so it was amazing. It was really amazing, you know. And it's so amazing to hear your own stories about your own journey in Calypso, you know. Yeah. And one of the other things that I know you gentlemen are versatile in. So for our viewing audience, those of you who know, if you don't know, another what should I say, subspecialty of Calypso, because Calypso is the umbrella, is extempo. And you know, I watch a lot of these rap artists these days that do these rap battles because they're freestyling, as they call it. You know, they call it freestyling. And when I look at them freestyling, I say, but you know, but that is extempo. It's just that the tempo is different. But it's extempo. Extempo is like the original freestyle art form. And I know you guys are really good at freestyling and extempoing, so I'm going to put you on the spot so we can give our listeners a little treat.
Oh, Lord.
I know. But I'm going to make it easy. I'm going to make it easy because you could choose your own topic. Just give us a little 4 lines.
We should have a guitar.
We're going to get excited. A little extempo.
Well,
first of all, as you said, you are correct. The extempo, the Calypsonian is the original rapper.
That's right.
And we had the Calypso tent in Reading. I think it was 2004 or 5, and some youngsters came, and I had an extempo, the little part with a colleague of mine down in Reading, and they never knew about the extempo, and I explained to them that the extempo, the Calypsonian, is the original extempo, the original freestyler, the original rapper. None came before us.
Yes. So if you could just give me a little something, and then we will go into the question.
All right.
Okay.
Jeffrey, I believe your key is B minor.
Really?
Isn't it?
That's all right, I do. It's C. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to let you know, with reference of extempo, ladies and gentlemen, let me let you know, what is the extempo? You have to have a vocabulary and sing a song instantaneously. It's not then. That is when you can do, man. You're a Calypsonian.
Yes,
well, you see, we sitting here with Giselle. This lady really does ring my bell. She is so talented when she back in Sparrow. It's something that I want everyone to know. When Sparrow came to England many years past, you know he made everybody look fast, because they knew he was the best in the whole world. That was Sparrow.
Oh yes.
Just before you conclude, Alexander.
Well, I was going to say right now that we have some questions from the crowd. We need to entertain and let them know a little more about Calypso. So let me look on my phone and see who here, so we can let them know what they want to hear.
That is good.
We're going to take some questions now. Santi
Santi Man.
Hey, thank you so much, gentlemen. You see, that's the good thing about Calypsonian, you know. Always ready. The Calypsonian is always ready.
Well, I want to tell you a little tiny short piece of story. About 10 years ago, Sparrow was here and he did the Troxy in East London. And I remember that Kevin Little was on too. It was a kind of mixed bag, you know, with different artists. And I opened the show. And the Divettes were, the Soca Divettes are fabulous backing singers. The wonderful Soca Divettes were there to back Sparrow too. And at the end of the show, everybody had gone. And I went back to the dressing room. And Sparrow was there on his own. And he was drinking a Heineken. And it was just the two of us sitting there, and he began to tell me, I feel it's a very personal thing. I'm not going to say what he told me, but he began to talk about his mother and how he missed her. And for about 15 minutes, we just sat there and chatted, and it was a magical 15 minutes for me because everybody had gone home, all the other artists, just the two of us sitting there in the dressing room. And I won't forget that.
Yeah, you had a one-to-one. That is very rare, very rare.
Yeah.
So if we jump right into the questions, gentlemen, my first question is from Francis, and Francis' question to both of you, but I'll start with you first, Alex, is what is your favorite Calypso?
Oh gosh. The toss-up would be between Bee's Melody by Kitchener. Yeah, I guess it's probably again, in both cases, it's either Bee's Melody or possibly Mystery Band by Kitchener, because Kitchener is the master of structure. I mean, I had the great pleasure of going to his house and seeing him 4 times in the 90s because he invited me there. And he said, anytime you're in Trinidad, give me a call and come over. So I did. And I was talking to him when he did, I think he did Toko Band to the latter part. And I said, in your other songs, you had 4 sections. There were 4 sections. In Mystery Band, he's got what you would call a verse, then you would call it a bridge, and then you would call it a chorus, except that it wasn't really the chorus because the real chorus with Kitchener is the call and response. Coming down, whoa, river coming down, bow, water coming down. So that's the real chorus when the people can join in. And prior to that, and I said, wow, that's fantastic. You're the only one I know that does 4 sections. Why did you go back to 3? And he said this very important thing. He said, well, the steel bands were starting not to play my stuff because it took them nearly 2 minutes to make one statement of the verse and chorus. By the time you get a Kitchener's tunes are very long. By the time you get the introduction and then the verse, then the bridge and then the chorus, and steel pan arrangers want to have something upon which they can show their skills. And if the song is too long, if it takes you 1.5 or 2 minutes to get one statement, verse and chorus, it's too long. So he reverted to 3 sections, which is what he does in Toko Band, in order to start being played again. Now that's a little bit of a musical insight. And the man was such a genius that he realized, hey, I'll restructure what I'm doing here. But I think it has to be, it's Mystery Band. Mystery Band is a fantastic song. Brilliant.
It absolutely is. And Jeff, what about you?
Well, my favorite Calypso of all time, and it's been my favorite song from the time I heard it, and you all might not know it. It was Sparrow's 1958 tune, Explorer. They think it fell in the ocean. They think it fell in the sea. Well, I don't care where it falls as long as it didn't fall on me. Explorer, explorer, somebody made a mistake at the control and they sent it out of this world. Or that he was singing about the space race. And when I got that tune, I went to a second-hand shop in 1978. And this old West Indian guy was doing this stuff. And I got this song. Now, I don't know what it is about the Explorer song. He was accompanied by a fellow called Sonny Den and his orchestra. But that song, there's something about that song that grips my soul more than any Calypso that I ever heard. For some reason, I don't know why it is. It's not a sort of song you would dance to. It doesn't particularly have let's say, a very strong message. It is actually it's a premonition that Sparrow had that came true in 1986. But the way he did it and the arrangement of it, there's something about it that it just grabbed me. And it was my favorite song from the time I heard it, and it is still my favorite Calypso now.
Thank you for that, gentlemen. I've got a question here from CB, and her question is, what do you guys think is the future for Calypso? I'll ask you that, Jeff.
The future?
The future.
The future, well, look, as long as you see the likes of myself, Alex, and when you see Carnival, when you see young people on the road, when you go to Carnival, you will see that the most people there are younger people. You will see some of the older people will sit down and watch the bands passing. But in my view, as long as you see young people stay involved in the art of Carnival, no, I said the art of Carnival.
Yes.
I didn't say going to Carnival.
Yes.
I mean the art of Carnival. There's a very big distinction there. As long as young people go to Carnival and are still involved with the culture of Carnival, they will always be Calypso. It might not have a verse and a chorus the way we do it. For example, during the lockdown, during the COVID-19 situation in Barbados there, right? Our crop over would have happened just a few weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
So we call the no crop over. They still organize a competition whereby people ring in the radio and vote. And a gentleman, a youngster, made a tune called You Deserve It. It is a totally different format to what I would do. But by all intents and purposes, it is real Calypso because he makes a point, he tells a story, and he does it in a way which would attract the younger generation. So in my view, Calypso is very safe. The Calypso tent will always survive providing they are into the art.
Yes.
And providing they do not allow what the detractors will say. They want to sort of commercialize everything to the point where it doesn't mean anything anymore.
Yeah.
The same. I believe Calypso will survive.
And I believe that as well. I mean, last year I had the pleasure of teaming up with Steel Pan in Motion to do, I think it was a 4-week program around Windrush, whereby I taught children in 6 schools in, Hertfordshire and Brockport and Enfield. And I taught them to sing Calypso. You know, they actually learned 2 Calypso songs. London is a Place for Me, and the Harry Belafonte song, Jamaican Farewell. Yes, Jamaica Farewell. And they performed this in public. And this was the first time these children, I mean, they were children in year 3 and year 4, had ever heard Calypso, ever sang Calypso. And the interest that they had, in it was really, really good. They were so keen. So I think, if we expose the younger generation to it, I think that, some of them will definitely take a liking to it. So I do see that there is a future for Calypso. I've got a very interesting question here from Courtney. And Courtney's question, which I'd pose to you, Alex, is how do you think Calypso music compares today compared to the legends of Calypso?
That's a very interesting question. And to follow on from the last question, same as you, Giselle, I've been teaching Calypso in schools, colleges, immigration removal centers for about the last 22 years. In fact, tomorrow I will be on another event, a Windrush event in Kent. And part of it will be that the audience will write a call and response song right there during the event, because I'm going to make them do it. They're going to plan to do something on the spot. But yes, sorry, I've got to come back to the question again because I've slightly diverted from what you said.
Sorry. So the question was, how do you think some music of today compares to the days of yesterday, the legends of Calypso?
Well, for a start, David Michael Rudder has taken it light years ahead in the things he does. He is one of these one-offs that manages to be both a Calypsonian and a soca singer and a poet and something else I can't describe. But Rudder really led from the front with a new way of expressing Calypso, from which all sorts of other offshoots have come. And if you think about Farmer Nappy and some of those modern younger Calypso, well, they consider themselves soca artists, but really they're still singing in the tradition of Calypso because the songs have topics in them that are relevant to all people. They're not like pop songs. I mean, with the greatest of respect and wishing no disparagement whatsoever, things like "Who Let the Dogs Out," done by the Bahamen and stuff, have become pop songs. Now it's a perfectly good Calypso, especially the original Trini version of it. But we don't go there, and as long as the young rappers are getting their message across, which is really a message of both historical content and protest. It's very important to remember that protest is what has driven society by refusing to accept some of the things that we have had to take on the chin over the years and singing about them, from folk singers to rappers to all sorts of different genres. I think Calypso underlies all of that because it is an African music that has been transported around the world. And remember, at one point, I mean, in the 1950s, Calypso was bigger than rock and roll in Britain. It was the most popular music. It was absolutely first, it was first and foremost. In fact, those pioneers like Attila and Lion and those guys that went to America, they really put it on the map. And it became very, very popular because of that. We mustn't forget that children love the beat. Children love the Calypso. I find that whenever I go and do this work I do in schools, they're always intrigued by it and they like it. And I said, we're going to do something together. I do classes, whole class writing. I will spend a day working with one class. At the end of the day, you'd be surprised how good the song is, incorporating all the ideas. And as you said before, children in primary school can do that. I'm actually working with a group now in the Notting Hill area. I'm meeting with a small group of about 10 children, the youngest of which is 5, and we're writing a Carnival Calypso song. Tomorrow will be the fourth session. So the future, I think, is safe. It is safe. It will continue. Definitely. Yeah, it is.
Will.
It's important to say as well that Calypso is a mother music, right?
Yes.
The Calypso is the first music of the Caribbean, and it is the first music of Carnival. And what we also must be mindful, and I always try to encourage people to never divorce the soca from the Calypso.
True.
Because the soca is the child of the Calypso from the same mother and father.
That's right.
Must never differentiate too much. Yes, the children will run faster than the father because he getting older or something like that. But they are still one, and we must embrace each other and remember it's one real culture. It is one culture.
Absolutely.
I'd like to add one more thing. Can I add one more thing there, which is what people need to know, especially if they study their history. The first people to play jazz in New Orleans were free coloreds, and the free coloreds were Caribbeans. And the reason for that is 1838, slavery was abolished in the British colonies, but it was 1865 before it was abolished in America. And Louisiana, being a French territory, was much more lenient about the way it treated its black citizens. Consequently, lots of Caribbeans who had been given their freedom, musicians and good musicians, traveled to Louisiana, particularly New Orleans, to find work, and they found work there. And they used whatever the versions of Calypso were in those days, or whatever the African music was, as Jeff has said, is the mother. It transformed itself into what eventually became blues, R&B, various types of jazz, and so on and so forth. But it was led from the front by Caribbeans because the Black Americans were still enslaved in that 30-year period between emancipation from the British Islands and then subsequently in the Americas.
If I could just add one thing to that, something else we've got to be mindful, is that the Caribbean itself, we talk about Calypso. Every single place you find an African enslaved person dwell in this world, the Calypsonian is there.
Even if he's doing samba or doing Cuban, or whatever it is. It's all part of the past. Yeah.
The Calypsonian, the griot, the art of rhythm and rhyme is prevalent wherever the enslaved African went. So what you find is, today in modern times, we must be mindful to not marginalize Calypso and soca and pan. Because some of the greatest Calypsonians, some of the greatest pan people came from other parts of the Caribbean as well, and now other parts of the world. So remember again, this is not a local thing. Kitchener, for example, he never sang like a local man. Sparrow never sang like a local man. He sang like a world man. Because we are not second to anybody. We don't come from the neighborhood. We come from the world. So we must look at our thing as a world music, a world thing.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. So guys, we need to wind down and wrap up this discussion so that we can let our audience view the film for tonight, you know, Calypso Dreams and Glamour Boyz again. But I am not going to let you guys go easily. So before you go, my question to the two of you is, what is your favorite Sparrow song? And I want you to sing 2 lines from it. I'm putting you on the spot again, right? Not the old verse, but just give me, or even just give me the chorus of your favorite Sparrow song to leave our viewers with tonight before we go into the film.
I have to say, well, you go first, Jeff.
Right. Well, I said, as I said earlier, that my favorite of all time is Explore by Sparrow. So let me show you the first verse.
Give us the chorus. Give us the chorus.
I think I remember the first verse. Where did Explorer go? Nobody knows. Where did Explorer go? Nobody knows. Is it still in space? They can't find a trace, because when they let it go, they forgot to switch on the radio. Now they think it fell in the ocean. They think it fell in the sea. Well, I don't care where it fall, as long as it didn't fall on me. Oh, Explorer, Explorer, somebody made a mistake at control and they sent it out of this world.
Hey, Alex, your turn before you go.
I'm going to go for his first great hit, because misogynistic as it is still one of the greatest calypsos of all time. Gina and Dinah, Rosita and Clementina, round the corner posing, bet your life is something they're selling. And if you catch them broken, you can get them all. Don't make a row. Yankees gone and Sparrow take over now. And it's because it's the Yankees gone and Sparrow take over now. It's again so bold. The statement is right. Yankees gone, I'm gonna take over. There's something about that, young teenage man stating his case. Great song.
When you look at a Calypsonian and then you look at a country and western singer, the country and western singer sing from a depressed position. The Calypsonians sing from a joyous position, a mighty position.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, Sparrow is such a master. You know, for me, one of my favorite, there's so many from him, but I always like his double entendre, bordering on humorous calypsos.
Oh, yeah.
He was so animated when he sang them. Even listening to a recording, you can hear the animation in his voice. And one of my favorites that my imagination just used to run away with me, just thinking about the antics and the actions that he would be making, singing the song on stage, is making love one day with a girl they calling Mimi. Making love one day with a girl they calling Mimi. I pick up Mimi by the railway, and we take a taxi down to Claxton. There before we lay down on the bed, she start catching me. Sparrow, don't bite me, don't do that, honey. I never had a man say about that. Because reason you making me feel so sweet. Stop, Barrow, stop. So, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us tonight and sharing your views, your insights, your stories. We need to go to the movie now, but I want to thank you again. It has been a pleasure speaking to you and seeing you. Ladies and gentlemen, our esteemed panelists, see you, gentlemen. Take care.
Thank you,
Giselle. Very much. Thank you very much.
Enjoy the film, everybody. The two films. Wonderful.
Wonderful.
So, ladies and gentlemen, there you had it, our panel discussion on tonight's film, Calypso Dreams and Glamour Boyz again. Now, before we get into the film where you're going to sit back, relax, and enjoy, I just want to take this time to remind you in closing that you can check us out online for tickets to future events at www.windrushfilmfestival.com. And you could also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And last but not least, make sure and tell your friend and them. Okay? So this is Giselle Carter, your host for tonight. I hope that you enjoy the show. And thank you so much for tuning in. Sit back, relax, and enjoy.
You are the salt, and I am the pepper. People tend to not like me at first, but try to get rid of me when you get a taste for my brain. And when you mix them together just right, they're perfect.
Who do like salt and pepper?
Can you get the door?
Let go!
Our film, Brothers in Babylon, is a neo-realist drama about two brothers, one black and one white, who are ripped apart by the tides of modern life.
Is now embraced by some as a badge of empowerment.
Queer, Indo-Caribbean and Canada is almost speaking about an impossibility.
We sometimes feel divided as Caribbean people. We sometimes hold on to one identity or the other and forget that we are multiple identities.
When I tell people that I'm Chinese Trinidadian, I get the response, "You don't look mixed at all." They need to reconcile how I look with where I'm from.
No, you're not black. You are Trinidadian.
Había una vez un hombre. El hombre bajaba a la orilla de la mar. La mar se enamoró del hombre y lo quiso sorprender con un hijo blanco, así como tú, y un hijo negro.
Dios, hijo de la luna y la noche.
So what am I going to be doing at Carnival? I actually don't really know. I know I've got a t-shirt because I'm going to get covered in chocolate on the Sunday. I've never been on the Sunday, so I've never witnessed this happening. I'm jumping up.
Lam bam bam pam. I'm bound to compliment all the steel band.
You're coming back at the same thing. You're getting mixed up now. This is the one with Desperado.
Oh, yes, steel band jamboree. Bam bam bam. Balam bam bam bam. Bam 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 bam. Balam bam 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 pading. Bailam bam. Bam balina li de lem blum blam blam plidim. Ali de la le de lamp ping. Tadle de lim blum blim blam dim.
It's a living vibration rooted deep within my Caribbean belly. Lyrics to make a politician cringe or turn a woman's body into jelly.
In May 48, the Empire Windrush set sail from the Caribbean for Britain. 500 on board, coming to seek work, among them ex-RAF servicemen. The fare was only 28 pounds 10, but that was a whole heap of money way back then. On the 22nd of June, the ship docked at Tilbury, to the discomfort of the government, led by Clement Attlee. They came upon the Windrush in 48.